Evening. The Design Review Board #1 public meeting of September 6, 2010 is called to order. Please refrain from talking among yourselves during the meeting. Please turn off or put on vibrate all cell phones and pagers. If you need to talk, please leave the meeting room. Anyone who wishes to speak, including applicants, is asked to completely fill out one of the speaker cards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff. You will be called to present a case or speak on any specific item as desired. Anyone who wishes to be re-noticed about a project must completely fill out one of the postcards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff to receive notice of the subsequent meetings. Current DRB agendas are available by calling our DRB hotline at 818-548-3171 or by visiting our website at www.ci.glendale.ca.us. A handout describing the procedures of the meeting, possible board decisions, and DRB reconsideration and appeals is available at the table by the front door. Please note that appeals must be filed within 15 calendar days of the DRB decision date. The chairperson may reorder the agenda items at his or her discretion. To start off with, I'd like to mention that case number 1-PDR 2010-032A, located at 534 to 538 North Kenwood Street, is being requested to be continued. And this is being a request for continuance because the posting for the site was not put up on the proper time. Staff is recommending that this case be continued until September 30th, which is the first available date.
Okay. Do we need to do anything right now at this point?
Roll call. Mr. Eliano?
Here.
Mr. Insua?
Here.
Ms. Palmer?
Here.
Mr. Simonian?
Present.
Mr. Yu?
Here.
The report regarding the posting of the agenda. The agenda for this meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall at or before 5 p.m. on September 9th, 2010. Now it's time for oral communications. Staff has not received any requests for anyone wishing to speak during this part. And Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the DRB 2. Or 1. That's right. That was my previous life. 1. Do we have anything we want members here to say or add before we begin on the one case we have this evening? Okay. Well,
there's only one thing I wanted to add was that I have to leave at 6:30 this evening, but I don't think our one case will go past that. But just in case I have a prior commitment, I do have to leave at that point in time.
I think that we'll all work hard to make sure that you leave with plenty of time.
I think so.
All right. Well, let's get going then. The first case this evening is DRB case number 1, PDR 2010-033-A. The project address is 1699 Royal Boulevard, and we have one applicant, which is the architect. So why don't we call the applicant up? Mr. Gar, I'm sorry? Oh, you're right. It's been so long. Forgive me. Why don't we have staff report?
The applicant on record is the homeowner, Rafi Karayan. He's here present with his agent, Gara Manassian. This project here is for a first-time submittal for review. The project summary for this project is for a first and second level addition, an expansion of a 2-car garage into a new 3-car garage, and a facade remodel. The subject parcel is approximately 16,000 square feet, regular in shape, with a gentle incline in the front and a downward slope at the rear. The existing house is approximately 2,900 square feet with a approximate 400 square foot 2-car garage. The property is located in the R1R2 zone, and it's in excess of 1,000 linear feet from Royal Boulevard Historic District. The project will include a 778 square foot first level addition, a new 887 square foot second level addition, and a 638 square foot attached 3-car garage. I'm going to move on to site planning. The proposed addition will largely be located on the central of the lot and will consist of a new street-facing 3-car garage. The proposed project will construct a 3-car garage to comply with zoning requirements for parking. The subject lot consists of 60% of existing and retrofit landscaping, which the minimum by code is 40%. A new 6-foot-high vertical wood fence with stucco columns is proposed at the front facing Royal Boulevard. On to mass and scale. Despite the size of the house will exceed the neighborhood average, the project doesn't appear to be excessively massive as it incorporates a horizontal design, a step-back second-level addition. It provides modulations at all elevations, or at most elevations, and it utilizes combination steel trowel stucco and horizontal redwood siding. Onto architectural style. The property is proposed to be updated with a contemporary style. The existing style is described to be of a ranch. A horizontal design is proposed by incorporating a flat roof appearance. Parapets will be added to conceal the existing ridges. A new flat roof will be incorporated at new floor areas. As well, parapets will be located at selected roof areas, which will be reconstructed. The horizontal design gradually increases from a 1-story to 2-story configuration as the home lays across the upsloping topography along Royal Boulevard. Although this is uncommon, additional information beyond the standard application was submitted with this by the applicant. In order to maintain the non-conforming interior setback of 5 foot 1 inch, a few complex techniques have been incorporated. Per the code, no more than 50% of the exterior walls and roof of a non-conforming can be removed, replaced, or abandoned in place. In order to achieve the desired design aesthetic and maintain the non-conforming setbacks, a few techniques have been incorporated. The applicant has provided structural plans which have been reviewed by planning and building. Comments from the Building and Safety Division indicate the issues appear to be minor and can be addressed during the formal plan check. Overall, staff recommends approval with conditions. Condition number 1, the wood stucco fence should be replaced with a layer landscaping to facilitate an open appearance that is prevalent in the neighborhood. Condition number 2, the parapet directly above the proposed 1-car garage door should be lowered to at the same level as the parapet directly above the 2-car garage to maintain the horizontal of the entire garage, or horizontality of the garage. Condition number 3, the vertical wood fence should be replaced with horizontal slats to complement the horizontality of the overall design. Although this condition conflicts with condition number 1, it just shows staff's thought and internal conversations prior to before this presentation. It offers the board to review both conditions, but staff does stand by condition number 1. Condition number 4. The design of the front entry door is not shown on elevation drawings. The front entry door should be of a clean and simple design consistent with the contemporary architecture of the building. Condition number 5, depending on the interior functions of the rooms, adding high clear story or transom windows may be appropriate in achieving window variety. Condition number 6, score lines should be incorporated where appropriate to further reinforce the building's horizontal expression. And the last condition, number 7, consideration should be given to providing breaks along the northwest elevation, potentially at the stair location. This includes staff's presentation. The homeowner and applicant, as with the architect, are available for questions, and I'm available for questions also as well.
Do we have any questions for staff? Of course.
Yeah, I have 2 questions. Mr. Joe, the first one, very quickly, you mentioned that structural drawings were provided because of some nuances with the setbacks. What specifically were the structural drawings incorporated into the package for?
Because the code clearly states whenever a building is when the demo exceeds more than 50% of the building, the house is considered brand new. The house does have non-conforming setbacks, interior setbacks. In order to maintain these interior setbacks, staff wanted a comfort level to make sure that these complex techniques that were incorporated can become reality, because we would like to see projects become reality rather than them get a DRB approval and all of a sudden we get to building and plan check, we say, well, it's considered more than 50% demolition. So we kind of got the preliminary review by planning and the preliminary review by building to see if this can actually hit the road and actually become reality. So
I see.
So in my big word way, I'm trying to find it. You're saying is that the planning department had concerns that the structure may exceed 50% demolition, and thus non-conforming side yard setbacks of the existing homes, which are being carried over into this construction, may be a problem. They submitted structural drawings and in fact saw that it would not be a non-conflicting issue with the demolition of 50% home, and thus they don't have to set their property side yards back like they would if it was a new construction.
that's correct, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
And
Eloquently put.
That was a short version, huh?
that was the abridged version. The second question I had was in reference to the second floor. My package didn't have a specific second floor, but I'm noticing here that the floor plan has the second floor drawn out on it.
Might be on your A2. There's no A2?
I'm missing an A2.
A2 would be the drawing.
You don't have an A2?
I don't have A2. So
Oh, you don't have
that is A2 over there. So I would then assume,
Didn't
is
have it
this, can you point out the portion of the first floor that the second floor covers?
Right, it's right over this drawing, I'm sorry, this is the street facing over here. There's a stairway right here. This is the front portion where the second level will be set upon.
And then what portion of it actually pops up, but isn't livable space, but it's considered a high ceiling from below?
The applicant does provide a vaulted ceiling in the midsection right here. This over here,
Maybe that
stairway
was showed on
begins
the
right
roof
here.
plan?
There's a superimposed plan right here which shows roofs to remain, which is the more of the tight cross patterns, and then you have more of the loosely cross patterns, which are the roofs to be removed. So you can see in this portion right here, this is all going to be brand new. It's going to be raised, and that's this portion right here, right in the center.
Okay. And that portion, maybe we could deal with this with the architect, but this right here is that the portion right here?
Yeah, that's the one.
That's the pairing wall over there?
That's correct. What they're going to be doing is, I know it looks rather extended. They're going to have parapets. As you can tell, it's rather complex. You've got to really follow the lines, and I understand why you're asking these questions, but they do have a set of retaining walls that kind of go along the perimeter, and they do follow along other areas of the building also as well. So if your package didn't have it, here's a spare one.
That's fine. It's on the board. I'll look at it over there. Well, I think it's more suited then for the architect for me to ask those specific questions. So no more questions from my end.
I had a question. Item number 6. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. I'll go after you.
The requirement number 6, score lines should be incorporated where appropriate. What do you mean by score lines? Like horizontal screeds on the plaster?
My question was just, so to be able to keep the 5-foot setback and be able to add to a structure without demolishing 50% of the existing one, don't you need a variance for that, or do you not need one?
For a two-story home for an existing, the setback has to be 5 feet for houses from 20 to 30 feet. What the applicant's desiring to do is to maintain those interior setbacks. So that's why we provide we ask for enhanced demolition plans, structural plans to make sure that it's not going to exceed the 50%. If they still are considered an existing home and they do not exceed the 50%, the interior setbacks will still conform.
Okay. So you can add to a house that has those setbacks. You don't demo 50% of it. You don't need a variance for that.
That's correct. If they demoed more than 50 1%, it's a brand-new home. They need to have 10-foot interior setbacks.
Okay, thanks.
Any more questions for? Okay. If I have one speaker card, and I count 4 people, if you want to speak this evening, we have blank speaker cards here.
No, I left it there in the box.
Very good, sir. We'll get it and we'll bring it up. Thank you. Okay. Well, why don't we start with the architect, Mr. Garo Minasian. Your name and address, please, sir.
Can I see the pictures?
Garo Minasian. I'm the architect. The address is 140 Akari Drive, Los Angeles 90049. Keep my notes on my iPhone these days, so.
Amazing tool.
I really am happy to be here. It's been a while. 2009 was not a good year. 2010 is not much better. The last project I designed was finished, about a month ago. 18 units rented in 1 month, so that was good news, or 2 weeks. I don't know which one. But as I said, I'm glad to be back. I enjoy working in Glendale, and I'm glad the Karayans, my clients, have chosen to do this project. I'm excited about it. I'm sure they're excited much more than I am because they've lived there for a long time, and that's Rafi's father and mother. And this is going to make their stay in this house in the future much more enjoyable than it's been in the past. So something nice to look forward to at this point in one's life. The process is new. I haven't been through the design review process as it's changed since the old days. So Dennis and I and Rafi worked at length to make sure the application was complete. It took much longer to get to this point, but I have no complaints. That's fine with me, as long as no surprises are going to happen later on. That's a good thing. So thank you, Dennis, for helping through this process. I had one meeting where Stephanie was at the meeting, and it was a very good meeting. And it was the first time I met you, Stephanie, and the comments that I received were sort of like being in front of design review, but a preliminary input. And it's been a while, and I've thought about those comments for a long time, and it sort of grew on me as time passed. So again, I thank you for your assistance and really hard thinking and focusing on making sure this project is going to be nice. The better it is, the happier I am. So, and the owners. The house is being added onto, not much. We're adding a little bit on the ground level, making a family room a little bit, actually creating a family room that doesn't exist now, and increasing the size of 2 of the bedrooms. We're eliminating a bedroom downstairs, am I correct? By making a laundry and a stair and a nicer powder room. And we're adding 2 bedrooms upstairs, sort of set back away from the street and on the north end of the site where the topography is climbing. So it kind of climbs with the topography, but it's not imposing on the facade. My inspiration was the work of Irving Gill. He's an architect. When I first saw some of the projects that he'd done, it really grabbed me. It was simple, clean, understated, but very forceful, very satisfying, and tranquil and all that. So I remember particularly his house, the Dodge House. Unfortunately, it was demolished not too long ago. And I have some pictures of that house, and basically that's where I started my approach to design of this house. I can pass these out.
Thank you.
This is a picture from the, 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 I printed from the website. Essentially, the building is a series of cubic volumes arranged together to sort of work off and harmonize with each other. And they are, the style was, of course, early 20th century and modernism, and it doesn't reflect too much of today's modernist designs where you've got perhaps score lines added to this style. So I'd like to stay away from adding the score lines to make it look more, as volumes rather than as broken pieces put together. And I've broken it sufficiently, I think, in components so that none of the pieces are too big to need assistance as, further breaking it down. But I have taken into consideration the comments from Stephanie and Dennis regarding the northwest elevation being maybe not as articulated. So I've got some suggestions which I'll share with you on how that could be modified. The other comment that was also taken into consideration was the wall in the front. My original thinking for this wall was twofold. One, the couple that live in the house are elderly. Mrs. Karayan is 90 years old. Mrs. Karayan is in her 70s. They will feel uncomfortable if the doorbell rings because they get excited. And I thought this would provide them a level of comfort that there is a separation between the public realm and the house by an exterior courtyard that's sort of gated. And I also thought from an architectural standpoint, it would provide one more level of stepping as you go back from street to garage, alignment where the garage is set. That's where the wall was located, and then further back to where the rest of the house is. But this is not necessarily the only way it can be done. And Stephanie's suggestion that the wall shouldn't be there should be taken seriously. And if it's the pleasure of the board that that's be the way to go, I'm fine with that. I think I've talked to my client at length to explain that maybe there's no sidewalk on this street, and the concern about security is not as much. I don't know if I've convinced them because they didn't know about the wall until I suggested it. When I suggested it, they liked it. So now I'm taking it back, and I'm in that sort of in-between position. So let me go through the conditions of approval and simply respond to them, at least let the board know how
And if you don't mind, if you could summarize quickly,
Yeah.
because your time is up.
Sure.
We want to make sure that you get enough time.
Perfect.
Thank you, sir.
Condition number one is that it's about the fence, so I've discussed that. Condition number two is the parapet over the garage. I've considered that, and I agree with that, so we will do that modification. It makes it simplifies things, which is fine with me. Condition number three is an alternative way of doing the fence, but if we're not going to do the fence, then it's moot. Number four, about the front door. The front door was not highlighted in the design because it's behind the wall, so there was not much shown on the elevations of the front door, but it would be a simple door, and it's a double door, but it would be basically simple recessed panel wood doors to match the color of the wood of the house. The suggestion for clear story windows, we had already utilized them. I looked at that because I thought there must be somewhere else. I missed it, and I found the location, which would be the living room facing south. So we'll put some more clear story windows there. Just throw some more light into the living room. I have plans which I will submit that show these slight modifications. The score lines, condition 6, I feel don't necessarily need to be implemented in this project. I like the way the house is without score lines. I don't want to add that, so I hope that could be taken into consideration. And then I've looked at that one elevation on the northwest and modified the stair area to create further modulation. And I'll submit those.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you. Any questions for the architect
I
applicant?
have one question. If you were to do the fence, could you describe what, I mean, it's called out as a wood and stucco fence, size, and it appears to be about 8 feet high. So could you describe what your intentions were?
Yes, it's a masonry segment and a wood segment. The wood segment has the support not visible from the front. These vertical slats were called out, I think, on my elevation as to size, but if they were to be converted to horizontal, they would be a little wider with small gaps in between.
What size are they? See it?
On the plans, let me just double check. I don't see it being called out, but they would have been like 2x verticals separated by maybe about 3/4 inch. But if they become horizontals, they would be more maybe like 3.5 inch wide, 1 inch thick.
And your height?
And the total height of the wall, somewhere around 6 feet, 6.5 feet. The block walls may be 6 inches higher than the wood to create the break. Since the report was made available, I looked at that and I entertained the idea of returning the wall, instead of carrying it all the way to the north end, to returning it back to the house at some point intermediate, which would actually be where that block wall in the middle is, and then just eliminate it further so that the wall basically goes back to the house. I also looked at it as a shorter wall, but it seemed to be unnecessary if it's shorter.
And one other question, maybe Larry can answer it. What are you intending to do about all the trees that are existing on the site?
The existing trees that I think on the site plan we call those trees that will be remaining. So there are some mature trees that will remain. So they're shown on sheet A1, and they are in these darker, smaller circles, which was brought in from the surveyor's information, and they will remain, except for the one that's in the driveway. That will be removed. And then there's a tree in the backyard that's is located. These are palm trees, little palm trees.
I've looked at the site, and I'm
Yeah.
just wondering, with the ones that I don't see that have that A1.
Okay. On A, you don't have A1?
No. Oh, yeah, I guess I do.
Okay, there are 3 trees to the left of the walkway that leads up to the front door. Those are the 3 dark, small circles. They will be maintained. There is one next to those to the left, which is in the driveway. That will go. There is one further to the left of the driveway. That will remain. And there's a larger tree at the north end, at the corner. That will remain.
I would just suggest that you coordinate with the landscape plan, because we've got proposed trees, and you've also got neighbors' trees hanging over. And with this simple design, if you look at the Dodge house, everything is low and clean, and this might be hiding the whole house. So just make sure you
Right.
Check that out.
I asked Larry Tyson to be here today because of the possible change in the front landscaping. If the wall were to be removed, we would be revisiting that and making some adjustments. If there are any questions of him, so he's here.
I have a quick question for you. So on the northwest elevation, the change that you're proposing
Yes.
here, is this face going to line up with that face?
No, it's protruding further out.
Okay, so then the shadow lines are kind of...
No, shadow line is correct. That's an 8-inch recess, whereas the top portion is recessed significantly more. Because if you look at the front north,
It would
let's
just
see.
be deeper than the...
Yeah, there's a little they're about 3 feet apart.
But that's the staircase, right?
Yes.
Isn't the staircase lined up going up?
No, above the landing, let's see if I have a section through there. If you look at the roof plan on sheet A4, this is not updated, but that's in the submittal. The stairwell element is not lined up with the exterior wall of the house. It's pulled back. The way it's pulled back is that it kind of hits the landing about in the middle of the landing, at the mid-landing of the stair, so that you have essentially a low profile at the exterior, and then it pulls back, and then it picks up again. And the headroom clearance for the stair would still work.
So you're saying that the landing is shifted as it goes up?
Okay, if we go to the floor plan, the landing is where it is. Now, the roof above the staircase that pops further up, and you see it in the front elevation as that glass enclosed protrusion, that is not lined up with the edge, with the outside of the exactly.
So you're saying that this plan and this staircase is actually here?
No, the staircase on the second floor is where it is, because the landing is shown in it. But if it was a section was taken, if you look at the roof plan, that's pulled back. If I may come up,
Of course.
and demonstrate how that works.
I don't know how that works.
Yeah. So the stair goes up to this landing.
Right.
At this landing, we have enough headroom underneath this level.
So
Underneath,
I'm assuming your landing is about here.
my landing is about there,
Okay.
a little bit below that.
Okay.
But at this point, you have enough headroom at this landing to continue up this flight of stairs, and this gives you the headroom clearance.
As you're going up, you have the wall, and then it comes up like this,
Yeah, and then it goes
ends
up again. Exactly. Yes.
I have some questions as well. On the material board, the windows are indicated in a navy blue color.
Yes.
Is that the color of the aluminum cladding
Yes.
that you're proposing?
Yes.
For the storefront windows and
All the windows.
All the windows.
All the windows.
Is that blue? And also the horizontal canopies
Yes.
that are located above the windows. Do you have any a section or a detail of that in the package?
From here.
No, I don't have that detail, but they would be the metal,
7, maybe about 2.5.
you know,
Are they? How many inches do you envision them
yeah.
protruding out?
about 30 inches,
About 30 inches.
Yes.
And then do you
24 to 30.
you envision a solid piece, both on the top and on the bottom, coming
Yes.
out?
Yes. And I want to see if it shows up on a side elevation as how much it comes out. I don't see it on the side elevations, but the shadow indicates roughly how much it protrudes out, which is about 30 inches.
And the window sill, is that a wood sill? As indicated, let's say, on the northwest elevation.
Yes, that would be
A wood sill.
Anything else, Chris?
Oh, and the stained wood, are all the stained wood in the proposed design the same shade? Because I noticed on the material board, there's two different
Right.
ones.
One of the shades on the material board has now gone away because I wanted to use that for the block wall,
Block wall, okay?
the one that was the fence.
Oh, I
If-
see.
If we don't keep the fence, I won't have that second.
So there's the
color.
walnut finish and then the mahogany finish. Are you proposing the mahogany finish, the lighter color for the building, or the darker color?
Let me look at that. Yes, the proposed.
You're going to have to talk into the microphone, I'm sorry. You could take it up there with you, and then...
Could have been clarified more by saying that this redwood is for the building,
Okay.
and this was going to be the color of the fence wood.
Got it. The 2x2 elements. I see. Okay. And all the stucco throughout the building is the same color, which is the lighter color.
Which is the lighter color. If we do a little bit of a wall and we use block wall, we will smooth stucco that as well. We'll use the darker tone
The darker tone, if it
for the
is actually...
stucco
I see.
off the wall.
So in what scenario would you use a lighter tone?
If we do maintain a fence of some sort, we will use that darker stucco color for the masonry wall of the fence.
I see, okay. Okay, understood. Thank you.
A couple more questions. What is the average height of the parapets?
They vary.
Roughly.
In some cases, they are adequate to basically provide for the slope of the flat roof drainage.
But the stucco portions, not the wood portions.
Right, that's what I mean. Like if you go to the second floor parapet, it's probably about a 2-foot parapet to hide the sloped ripping of the roof and the crickets to direct the water to the drains. In the first level, there are some parapets that are on the existing portion of the roof which is not being demolished. They do rise higher than that. But any of the new construction, it's as high as necessary for the crickets to work.
But you would say about 2 feet above the highest point of the roof, of your sloping.
Probably no more than 12 inches above the highest portion of the roof, because the roof is not really a very pitched roof, probably be about a half inch per...
Half inch per.
yeah,
Okay.
right.
And so this clear story that you provided in here?
Yes.
Is actually located in such a manner where it's below the roof line then?
Exactly.
And that's why it's being hidden by this
That's right. That's
volume
right.
in here?
Yes. That room has a clear story that was proposed originally on the other side, facing the backyard. And now it'll have this repeated on the side as well. So on the rear elevation, that clear story is above the covered patio. And so it'll also be now on the other side.
Would you estimate that the house on the west side, the one that's sort of the closest one on, is, how high do you think that one is?
The one to the right or to the left? The left is lower, the right is higher.
The right one,
The right one. The right one has a second story also in the back,
but on the other side.
on the other side. And the relationship, we do have a survey. I could maybe estimate by looking at the survey roughly what the relationship is. But I think our second story would be no higher than their second story, perhaps even or slightly less.
Okay.
Because
But
of the
at
topography.
Closest point, how high do you think it is about?
You mean to the closest part of the house next door?
Yes.
The variation?
Just the height of the neighboring, what would you
Right,
estimate
right.
it?
The neighboring that's got that roof.
Right.
Let me see if the survey is here. I don't have the survey, but I'd say that based on my recollection, the level of the first floor of the house to the right side is probably about 4 feet higher than this house.
4 feet, wow.
Right. But that's a one-story house, and we're going two-story. So our roof parapet is going to be probably, I'd say, 10 feet higher than the house.
And we're talking about this one right here, right? It doesn't look more than maybe 2.
An elevation of the lot.
My estimate would be more like 4 feet. The picture may not be easy to.
4 feet's pushing it. I don't know. That's it. Okay.
That's
All right,
my
that's
best
your
guess.
estimate.
That's my best guess.
That's what I asked you. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
Any other questions for the architect applicant?
How thick are the horizontal canopies over the windows?
About 8 inches.
Do they all stick out the same
Yes.
distance?
Yes.
One more question.
Mr. Aliano?
Yes.
This may have already been covered. In the new plans that we've just received, the elevation looks like the stair is recessed. The plan doesn't show that.
As I was explaining, Stephanie, the recess is 8 inches, and it's shown on that site plan, that 8-inch recess.
Yeah, you just deleted some thickened wall, basically, right?
Where the stair walls are,
Right,
the side
you deleted the
walls,
thickened wall to
we
push it in.
we have pulled the exterior wall in 8 inches, and we've used siding on that. It goes up to where the roof steps back and then goes up again.
So the stair volume recedes 8 inches, and then that one canopy projects out within that recess.
And projects further out because
Right.
it's 30 inches. Yeah.
Right. And then just to follow up on the canopy questions, you mentioned that was metal. Is the projecting soffit also metal, or would that be stucco?
We would do the entire thing out of metal.
Good, thank you.
Anything else? Any other questions? Okay, thank you, sir.
Sure.
Okay. The next person here is a neighbor, Mr. Frank Zemeth. Would you like to come up and speak, sir? Your name and address again, please, sir. And you have 3 minutes? Is it 3 minutes? 3 minutes. You have 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm a neighbor adjoining to this proposed change, and I live on the downhill slope of the property in question. So my primary concern is the slope and what I see from the rear of my property. So as far as I know, and what I've been assured, is that there's no changes to the slope and the trees that are on the slope at this time. So that was my concern, and that's the reason for being here.
Thank you, sir. Your name and address, please. I don't think, did you say it? Your name
Frank
and
Simmons, 927 Chedley Lane.
Thank you, sir, for coming. Okay, well, if we don't have any questions anymore for the applicant or anyone else, I'll close the public portion. Okay. We close the public portion. Mr. Eliano, why don't you begin us today?
Okay, thank you. Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Menashe, for a nice presentation. Welcome back. I've enjoyed this design a lot. I've looked at the drawings and I've listened to you today, and I like what you've done. I agree with the fact that you're trying to create a massing that's more about volumes rather than lines. So I think staff has done a good job in putting together a nice list of things to work on, and I believe you responded to them very well. So I don't want to dwell too much on that. I think the fact that you lowered the parapet above the one garage door and made it all even, I wasn't quite sure why that was doing that. I thought maybe it had something to do with the elevations, but it sounds like you were able to work it out, and the project does look nice as a result. As far as the fence, that's something we probably should discuss, because we probably want to leave here with some direction, whether you want to put the fence in there or not, because you certainly have the materials already picked out. And so I just have compliments more than anything. I think it's going to be a really nice project. I like the simplicity of it. I like the fact that you're contrasting the larger masses with the wood cladding, the wood horizontal members, or slats, I should say. I agree with the tone, the colors that you've chosen for the wood. And even planning-wise, it's a very nice diagram. I mean, there's some few awkward things there, but that's because of the nature of the creature. I mean, you've done probably the best you could do with what's there. So diagrammatically, it's very nicely put together. And for me, I kind of like the fence because it creates a sort of courtyard before you get to the main house. But if you don't have the fence, then it opens up the house even more, so you really start to understand the volumes even better. So both ways, I think you're going to win. Let me flip through my drawings here. I also agree with what you've done with the stair. I mean, pulling it back a little bit, it creates a little bit more detail at that elevation. Now, the only troubling thing that I have is actually that this area here. I was hoping that there's something that you can come up with here, because you really read. Well, now we have the volume sort of coming down, but you still have this large shape. There's a way to even create a line there, or maybe pull that in. If you just sort of soften that corner a little bit. That's really the only area that I'm struggling with. But other than that, I don't know that I want to suggest that you do much more than what you've already agreed to. I think you've done a good job following through the comments and giving good responses. And I think I'll leave it at that. I know that in the end, whatever is decided today, it's going to be a really nice project. So, thank you.
Mr. Simoni, you want to take a snap?
Well, I agree as well. This is a very nice design. You could tell a lot of time and effort had gone into it. It is a complicated task to take an existing home and to abide by the 50% rules and whatnot, and then really try to come up with something wildly different than what's there already, style-wise and volume-wise and layout-wise. So it's an architectural challenge when one is presented with that opportunity. Is probably the best way to describe it. So you've certainly embraced that opportunity, and you've gone at it, and you've done a very good job. And so compliments to that. It's going to be a very nice building. I think some of these questions that we've identified and addressed throughout this hearing has been our curiosity, and it's sort of, we feed off of what's presented to us. So the more detail that's presented to us and the more depth there is to a design, we tend to look into it more. And so this is one of those examples where there's just so many layers to this onion. So you start peeling it, and then you start looking at it from every which direction, and you really do see that it does consist of volumes, which I'm glad that you brought up, because it's not doesn't jump out at us that was the overall intent from the beginning. At first you might think, oh, just another modern home that just simplified the elements and just wanted to just go with the stucco and the stained wood. But it's a little more than that. You're actually going back and taking a style from the Adolf Loos days, even before the Dodge House, and that's what it is. So, and I'm glad you brought that up. And so with that direction then, it really changed my philosophy of looking at the building, because then I was really starting to look at it from a different viewpoint, which was exactly the intent of the architect. And so I believe that the new revised northwest elevation that was presented is much more thought out, and I believe harmonious with the overall design. That break on that large wall certainly makes a big difference. And so I think that was a worthwhile effort on your part. And the questions that I had, and I think you've somewhat addressed them, was simply the clear story on the southeast elevation. You know, if you want to have your parapet at a certain height, and then you want to have a window behind it, only a portion of it is going to be visible from a very predominant viewpoint, which is when you're driving up, that's what you see. So I'm still struggling with that one portion, and that's, you know, this clear story window right here, where, you know, volume-wise from the interior makes a lot of sense. You have one on the south, and then you have this on the other side. And in fact, this wall is probably stepped back enough where if you're standing inside looking up, you're going to see clear sky. So from the interior, it's absolutely the right move. From the exterior, when you're driving up the street, you just see the sliver of a window that goes to nowhere. And so one way to address that is just raise this parapet slightly to just cover that. But I believe that's more of a minor thing that might get hashed out as you start looking into it. Personally, I believe that if these windows were recessed, it'll work a lot better, and we didn't have a lot of details to work with, but I would suggest that if you do recess them and give it some thickness there, certainly work a lot better. And I'm not quite sure if the wood sills are appropriate. I would go with the spirit of the volumes, and if they're recessed enough, and then you have these very strong horizontal window canopies that are popping up above them, that might be all that's necessary. The windows are going to be very predominant with these navy blue colors. I mean, they're going to be very striking. And so with the wood underneath it, it might actually create more of a, it might take away from it, I guess, is the best way to describe it. Insofar as the fence, as Mr. Aliano pointed out, and I concur as well, to me, I believe that if it's set back and it starts to work with architecture, it might not be a deterrent, and it might actually end up being an asset, because a portion of the building starts being visible, and then there's a vertical slots, and then it goes away, and so forth. So when you're driving by, you start seeing glimpses of a building behind it, of this courtyard, and I think that kind of layering is a nice approach. So I'd love to hear what the rest of the board would say, but I would say, if a fence is there, the way it's presented and the way it's described, I'm certainly amenable to it. And so overall, job well done, and I believe this will be a nice design and a good asset to the neighborhood. Thank you.
You? I think, first of all, I want to commend the architect. I think you did a wonderful job. Just sort of the overall essence of the project and the way it was, you've kind of conceived it and detailed it. I think you've done a wonderful job there. I like the new revised elevations in the portions where, in the front garage, you've made it one simple volume, just like all the other ones, to try to stay in that language. And also the sort of the top of the garage door openings, they were all kind of off a little bit, but you straightened them out. It looks really good that way, and they're very clean. The only thing that I'm struggling with is not the architecture of it or the materials, but more of the 25-foot sort of large, two-story being placed right at the sort of highest point, closest to the closest neighbor. So I'm kind of struggling with that a little bit. But the language of the project and everything, I think is fine. It's done very well. I really like the living room sort of large window. That's a nice detail there. Especially I like. Let's see. I think your use of the wood versus and where you're using them. I mean, there's a little bit here and there, but I think mostly it's done very well. Some inconsistency a little bit, but that can be worked out as you keep working on it. Just a suggestion would be in the back, your patio covers, the proportions of openings, they're sort of, your columns versus your sort of header piece. I think maybe try to eliminate some columns. I mean, open that up and make it wonderful as you're going in there. But I mean, besides that, I think if there's any way we can lower that portion of it, I want to look into it. It just looks really big compared to what's there now. It would just overshadow that one story next to it. Fence-wise, I actually like the fence. I mean, I know that there's not one of these sort of in the other houses, so it becomes a little strange in the neighborhood. But I always like sort of this layering of public to semi-public to your living room, which is like and then you get into your private spaces, and so I like this layering of things. Maybe we set a height to the fence so it's not as intrusive, I guess, to the street. I don't know. And I'm okay with sort of the verticalness of it because it plays off. I mean, not everything has to be horizontal. It's sitting on the ground, so I'm okay with that too. Be curious to see what you guys have to say.
Thank you. Ms. Palmer?
I also agree that I really like the architecture on this. I think you've done a great job. I think the revised plans address all the concerns that I have, so I think that's a better job there. I, too, like the fence. My only concern is, and maybe the drawing doesn't depict it, but when you're out on the site, it may be too close to the street. If it was maybe pulled back a little bit from the garage, back a foot or so, and as it steps back, so you get extra layering. And I don't think we should reduce the height because I think it's going to start to look too small with the building. I like the verticality about it. And I would comment, if the fence were put in there, that maybe all those trees do come out, because the ones that have been proposed go with that architecture, and they're light and airy, and you've got some trees that are mix and match. And I think just one kind of tree, keep the landscape low and clean, maybe add some grasses rather than some of the shrubs, so it complements the architecture. I think that's the only comments I have.
That's a good point. Thank you. IL2, great architecture. You can sense that you didn't copy someone else's work, but you were inspired by it, and then you made that inspiration your own work. And in working with the owner, you came up with something uniquely different and special. So when I saw this package, I was pleasantly surprised. I also went by the site this morning and saw it, spent some time there. You had the story pulls up, and I did get some thoughts that I think we've been looking at. So I want to ask a couple questions, but all in all, the architecture is very, very good. What is your floor-to-floor heights? Do you have like 10 feet on the ground floor and then 10 feet on the second floor? I know that the drawings here say that the finished floor on the first floor is 98.00. Do you happen to know what the finished floor is of the second floor? I did a quick math given the elevations, and it's somewhere around 10 and 10, 12 and 8. Do you happen to know what the... Yes, please come up. Thank you, sir.
The first floor elevation ceiling heights are 10 feet.
10 feet.
In those rooms that have a second-story addition coming onto them. The others, they are limited by the roof, and so they stay what they have, like in the kitchen area.
Yes.
But on the second floor, I believe we also have a 10-foot ceiling.
Very good.
Both Karayan's father and son, are tall people. I could live with 9 feet, but 10 feet works better for them.
Thank you, sir. The only person I'm not tall is with my in-laws. They're all about 6'9", 7 feet, so I'm no longer tall than that family. Okay. Architecture's terrific, and I'm going to try to focus my thoughts. I, too, like the front patio. It creates a wonderful, another place to be. And then when you combine it with your fountain, it needs to be sort of like a pseudo-private place. You're so talented. You can achieve something that gets you the patio, the privacy, the wall, and gives you that outdoor space. When you're out there with the fountain and in our gorgeous California weather, you need a fence of some sort. There may be some argument of height, there may be some argument of materials, there may be some arguments of the pilasters, less pilasters, materials, but I think that the board of all of us are supporting some sort of fence, maybe pushing it back so it's not in line with the front, but I would definitely keep the fence in some way. I think project that's different in its style, that did a wonderful fence about 2 years ago, is on the corner of Hillcrest and Kenneth. It's a period home that's got that Frank Sinatra sort of look, and they did a complete exterior remodel. On the corner of Kenneth and Hillcrest, it would be the northeast corner of sorts. You'll see it. They did a wonderful fence that combines translucent materials, scored block. It speaks to this kind of architecture, and I think that you would find something like you were inspired by the original architect to look at that and find something that's lighter, lower maybe, a combination of things, but definitely would support a fence from what you're trying to achieve there. So I've talked about the fence. When the staff, and I'm always in support of staff, they're so good at what they do and they've been doing it for so long, but when I heard the comment that upper portion right here should be lined up for here, I go, I don't like that, if that's what you were talking about. And I think we see an example of that in the handout that you gave us, where it starts looking offside, off balance. That one thing that happens here, and you may want to reduce it or whatever, maybe this, but if you notice it frames nicely that vertical window here by having two panels in front of that are a different color, harder, and you see there's a nice symmetry being collected here, achieving here. Everything in life doesn't need to be symmetrical, but here I think it does it really nice. And when you look at what you handed out here, you can see that there starts looking like something's leaning over. It doesn't work well. I would support keeping it even, but maybe finding a better place to terminate it here. Maybe. But I'm a supporter of that. My feeling. Make sure I got everything. I mean, all in all, you can see that everyone is very encouraged. The architecture fits so well. It's a new approach to these ranch homes there. And then my last one. The only thing that when I went out there, and I think we've touched upon a little bit, is the blocking height, or the height on this elevation right here, especially in adjacent to the next door neighbor. It does, especially when you look at the story pools, you'll see this large mass looming over the next door neighbor. And when I asked what the vertical heights were between floor to floor, 10 feet at each one, perhaps maybe making the second floor 8 feet or a little bit lower, 9 feet, may help a little bit of that tallness that we're getting here. But then you start getting close to this, so you start losing mass there. I just see that as the only part of this project that's on a little bit of a hill, 3 to 4 feet grade change, especially with your adjacent neighbor who is right here, single-story house at that area. That, to me, is the only area. You can see a little bit of right here that tends to be a bit imposing on its neighbor. That would be my only area that maybe could be looked at. Other than that, I think it's got some great things going with it, and you chose a very talented architecture firm and an architect, so congratulations. Okay, so what is the general thinking? Are there some areas that we see on the staff comments that the applicant has already said that they would do? Do we want to start there and say this okay, or?
Well, there's a record. I mean, he responded to every comment, so maybe we can just see.
Right, and I think I marked them all, hopefully well.
Would it be a good time for me just to...
Yes, why don't you do that?
Things that staff has heard, perhaps softening the rear northeast elevation of the larger volume, perhaps maybe providing a break or some type of score or something like that, particularly... although the revised plans show the additional volume being shown here, but it was particularly this volume right here that maybe breaking it up or provide maybe some type of a line, perhaps.
Well, my problem with the line is the architect had indicated they didn't want to have score lines, which is part of the philosophy. I don't think a score line is going to help the massing. our consideration was perhaps having the second floor space not be 10 feet and maybe making it 8 feet may help that height issue
But
there.
that was one of my comments too. What I meant by the line was not the line, but also to create a break in planes, because that room could get slightly smaller. Right here. When you look at this, I mean, if there's a way to take this plane and just push it back a little bit and then lowering that, because you could actually already a language established there. So that's something that I think the architect's going to have to work, with staff. I don't think we should give too many restrictions, but the general concept would be to do something with that corner.
It's a weird area to break.
Out of plane.
It's right in the middle of the room.
Create out of plane elements or lowering, because as I said, on this elevation here, you already have some height reduction. You can see it here. So it's this little corner here, which is actually right there, that could be mitigated. Maybe you take that chunk out and somehow rework that corner a little bit. But it's a sort of a study that the architect has to do, and if it works, the staff can.
So, if I may, there's a condition to modify the two-story volume at the northeast side, but
West side.
northwest side. But how that gets managed could either be a shortening of the volume, a pushing back the back corner at the second floor, or a combination of these things. The question that I have is, would lowering the second floor ceiling height so that the whole package gets lower, would that be sufficient if it remained a two-story squarish volume, or would you still like to see some additional break in that two-story volume?
Well,
Can I respond?
Yeah.
I think there's a concern about the height. For me, I think it's more about the articulation, because the whole building is articulated in such a way where you always have these smaller and larger pieces. This is the only elevation where you don't have that. So for me, I think it's more important to create a break or some sort there, and if you lower the corner, even better. But to answer your question, it's not just a matter of lowering the whole thing, for me.
Okay.
So that the architect can look at that, and I'm sure he can come up with something that's within some of these parameters that we're talking about, that will make him happy, will make the client happy, and everybody in the city happy.
So for Mr. Insua, would you be okay if there was articulation but no lowering of the height? Or do we need to condition both?
I think we're saying that you have to do a little bit of both. Yeah, I mean, I think in order to deal with that corner, just breaking the plane and pushing it back may not be enough. That's why I was talking about that you already have this line here, which is that line, which you can revisit that corner and maybe come up with something to sort of mitigate those heights. But I think something has to happen here,
It's always a scary thing when you start, and I'm thinking about myself only, when you start in a short time that we have here, I'm speaking only for myself, to try to solve something. And I apologize because sometimes something is said and then suddenly it opens up problems, because you've been working with this thing for a while and you've seen those things. So this is only a statement of, could this work? And not to drive a thought anyway beyond. And this is often the wrong place because we have such a little time, and it's not fair. But in now having said that, what if you notice this portion, this block portion of the first floor is at 10 feet. And directly above it is this block portion of the second floor, which is really where we're getting that mass. What if that area and that area was made 9 feet and 9 feet? The exterior just shifts down a scotchy. Nothing happens here, but this overall lowers because instead of your ceiling height being here, which then creates this mass, everything is contained because this is the stair and this is the laundry room. So if this portion, which is a box, is kept at 9 feet, and this one at 9 feet, we have a 2-foot net reduction of what we currently have right now, and we don't have to worry about the scoring, pushing back, and you still get that plane. Again, I'm always, it's.
Why don't we leave it, because I think, that's a good suggestion, but I can see how that has a huge impact on the front.
Yeah, and yeah, that's what I mean. It's like, so I want to be real careful with that.
I mean, I like the way the stair kind of hits that plane. It's very gill. It sort of has that gill look.
Yeah, that's why I'm always like, it's.
I don't think we should resolve it. I think we should just give the direction to staff and the architect.
And here's how the condition reads so far. So if this is good, we can move on to the next item. Softening the northeast elevation, providing a break in the volume, and lowering the roof. Suggestion to revisit the rear corner at the second floor in a similar fashion to the second floor at the rear. As that part of it is a suggestion, but the requirement of the condition is to lower and provide a break. However the architect chooses to do that, he can work that out.
Except I think it's the northwest elevation.
That's right, northwest elevation. Thank you.
Okay. So we move on.
That's broad enough, and that gives you enough to sort of...
Okay.
I would even add a note that maybe even look at the parapet if you can reduce a little bit more of that, because that'll give you an extra foot in there that you can reduce. And 3 feet would help a lot for that site. I think it was going to, especially to how it looms over the neighbor.
Yeah. You can see the roof. If the scuppers are put on the right spot, you can see.
Yeah, there's a lot of parapet in there.
Okay.
For the comments that staff had heard, the clear story behind the parapet suggestion was raised to perhaps raising the parapet on the southeast elevation to hide the clear story that was introduced. Additional comments provided recessed windows to provide depth without the sills, the wood sills. It seems like a lot of the majority of the board was in agreement with keeping perhaps a vertical fence, but perhaps maybe stepping it back a little bit further, provide the extra depth along Royal Boulevard. Did you guys want to discuss that, or should I just keep on going? Okay, I'll just keep on going.
I would like more specific direction on the fence, because we have heard pushing it back beyond the perimeter of the garage and also potentially lowering it. If you'd like to see those, we can condition those. If that's a consideration, then that's up to you if you want the fence exactly as it's
We're
shown.
assuming that it's 6 feet now on the documentation?
I believe that's correct.
Looks like 8 feet.
My thoughts on it is that when I'm looking on sheet A1, the fence already breaks. It goes along and it's Z-shaped already, and so it already is broken up in a manner that I think breaks up the whatever massing that it would create. Personally, I think 6 feet is appropriate because it is set back from the street. It's far enough back where 6 feet would be appropriate. And I think 4 feet is too little. So now we're splitting hairs. Is it 5 feet or is it 6 feet? We could certainly say the masonry portion is 6 feet and the wood portion is 5 feet. As the architect indicated, there should be some hierarchy, which is the right approach. So I think that right there is a good starting point. But to push it back or forward from the garage, I don't think is going to make any kind of a massing difference for the house. If there's a line along the garage, it could go there, and so I don't see any advantage in pulling it back a foot or 18 inches.
Okay. Be nice to see the corner, though.
Corner of the garage?
Yeah, but it would be, then you'd have to push it further back, way back before, yeah.
Create a gap.
Okay.
Okay, I'm okay with leaving it where it is. Then we'll set it at
I don't
6
mind
feet.
the overlap. I mean, there's, on the rendering, that shows a little overlap, which I think is quite nice.
But what's going to go into the filling to make sure that...
But it's going to be hard to work in there when they, but, you know, stuff will grow in there.
So then we'll condition the masonry portion at 6 feet and the wood portion at 5 feet, so that we have a certainty of height, because I think there was a question about
Currently, it's
that.
drawn at about 8 feet, the masonry portion of it. Okay.
So 6 and 5, so there'll be a change in elevation.
Right. Thank you.
That could be nice, actually, yeah.
Perhaps we could discuss further about the window, the details. A suggestion was to recess the windows to provide some type of layering or depth for the architectural treatment for the windows, without the sills.
You know, that was a thought I had, and
I agree with that.
I think in the spirit of the volumes that are created and having no score lines and having just pure volumes, to create the shadow and the depth in the windows will really articulate the design. So I think that's something that would help the design quite a bit. And personally, I don't think the sills are much of an asset to the design. But again, the architect's so talented and he's gone so far. So if there was some reason for the sills that we just did not have a chance to go over.
Well, we have an example to see a window without a sill. If you look at sheet 2.1, upper southwest elevation, there's a window there without a sill, and then you have the other ones with sill. And I think you're right. It enhances the contemporary nature of it.
And so then if everyone's on board in that, we could say no wood sills and just recess the windows. And I'm not sure we want to really give a dimension of the recessing.
Let's create a shadow.
Just create some sort of a shadow, and the architect could work that out.
Agreed.
Let's see. Additional comment about the patio located at the rear, perhaps eliminating columns to open it up.
That was just a suggestion.
We're design review, so we only I think we may not be allowed to make that kind of non-public view of a house. I mean, I recognize it's just a comment, but, we can't see from the public right away, so I don't think we have that.
Well, you have the
we have to close
authority.
our
If
eyes on
you
these-
choose not to take it, I think that's fine with everyone as well.
Last comment. Well, let me see. Extend the parapet. The extended parapet, concerning to staff's recommended condition number. Condition number 2, the parapet that was originally extended above the single-car garage door. There was a comment about, actually, it was something that he would like to see, or maybe was fine with it.
We're talking about the parapet above the garage?
The little step.
Above the one-car garage door.
So we have an example of what it would look like without it and one with the current design, so.
Yeah, and the condition that staff provided was really just to even that out. We didn't specify to the architect a height of that. We heard from several of the board members that the even parapet was preferred, and then from board member Insua that it was preferred that the entry and the parapet match in height, so potentially we can get both end if the way it's drawn now were simply raised to match the entry height. And I'm seeing nods.
I think it's kind of tall.
Either or is fine.
Whatever we decided, or do decide, in the revised version, the single garage door is at the same height as the double, and in this version, single garage door is, I don't know if it's drawn incorrectly or what, but it's taller and looks like it's recessed.
Well,
So we would need to decide.
I think that's a function of the different slope angle.
But see, it's not on the revised.
well, and also, Mr. Insua, it might also be, you see on the rendering, this portion actually goes much similarly to what's happening on the other side. It's kind of nice when you're driving up, you see this plane going back, and so I believe that stepping has something to do with that. Cause that on the roof, maybe
I think it's
something.
just a bigger parapet or a higher parapet than.
And so you had some comments on that. I'm not
Yeah,
sure what you
I'm
wanted to
comfortable
do
with it. I think it looks good when you're looking at it from the corner, as indicated here on the rendering. I think when you're looking at it face on, you'll see that there's a height that when they return, see, when it returns back against this wall here, and it returns back against the wall there, it's on the same plane. By lowering it, it'll look kind of cockeyed. So I'm comfortable with it, and from those perspectives. Yes, and you can see that the door on this elevation, but because the site is sloping a little bit, I believe that this would more accurately represent what's going on there, because you have a little bit of a slope angle. So,
I don't think the garage is in two different levels, though. I think that's a
mistake.
yeah.
That's right.
I think it's all on the same level, and this is more accurate.
Okay.
Do we have any further comments in regards to the northeast elevation, in regards to lowering it?
I think Stephanie made
Yeah,
Oh.
I don't know if we've completed, do we have
Yeah,
a
my only thing
consensus on the garage?
is that I'm okay with the fact that if it's the same height, it's sort of framing it, but then the fact that this portion is larger spaced and that portion kind of takes sort of the formality out of it, and it's sort of like just work it out. I'm okay either way. I mean, either he has the higher parapet or not, as long as that portion is sort of working within itself.
So both the previously submitted and the elevation submitted this evening, both are fine, and it's for the architect to choose? Very good.
I agree.
Thank you.
With that?
If I could add something to that. I think I'm okay with all this. The difference in the opening heights, I think there, if you are going to choose to create the step, I think I'm not sure if the drawing, this is a rendering, but there needs to be at least some substantial difference in the heads on the doors. Otherwise, if it's just a few inches, it may look like a mistake, So
Right. I think they're saying they're not gonna
they're not going to.
make it different heights. It'll be the same height.
So the opening will be the same, except that the step will be on the
Right. If they
parapet only?
choose to put a parapet, they could put.
Okay,
one on
I
top.
got it. Very good. Okay.
And perhaps lowering the northwest elevation, I'm sorry. Did we work that out as far as reducing the first and second floor?
That was the first
That's
item.
correct.
Definitely
Okay.
got it all detailed.
That's all I have. So.
Okay.
So really, it looks like we have, 3 conditions. The rest are all sort of suggestions, right?
I've, as far as in my notes, conditions 1 and 3 have been striked out. Condition number 2, for simplicity, I just made it as a consideration. Conditions 4, 5, 6, and 7, I still have open right now. Does the board have any opinion on amending, removing, adding to these conditions?
Well, I think if we didn't mention them, then we shouldn't be going over them, because what you went over was holistically what our thoughts were. And so whatever you didn't mention is not a condition or a consideration. And whatever you did mention previously then becomes conditions.
Yeah. So the 3 items that we
consideration.
mentioned are the ones that we should put into.
So, sounds like we've got it all.
Yes.
Thank you.
And the
And if we don't have anything else, I'd like to make a motion to approve the project per the.
I missed that. So 4, 5, and 6, and 7 is basically being covered already with something else. Is that what we're saying?
I'd like
Do we-
to make a motion. No, go.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I was going to ask for a second. That's all.
Oh, before we do that, I think everyone agreed that the version presented this evening with the stair volume inset 8 inches was preferred, so that should also be a condition that gets included.
On
Great.
the northwest elevation.
Yes, on the northwest elevation, the stair volume should be recessed 8 inches. Thank you.
Yes.
Make a motion to approve with the conditions mentioned.
Second that.
Yes, of course. Please come up to the.
With respect to the mass of that northwest elevation, I think the condition was to lower the floors and do some articulation. If it is possible to lower that parapet, because I haven't really sat down and fine-tunedly calculated this, there may be okay to keep the floors as they are and just lower the parapet or recess the parapet.
That's what we said. We didn't prescribe lowering the ceiling heights. We prescribed working with the parapet height, pushing the building in, or lowering the ceiling heights.
Three ways where you can.
Up to you.
Before I just want to be clear for myself. We agreed that whatever comments and conditions we want are based on based on the ones that you talked about. Whatever is written here is somehow superseded. I just want to make sure the arc doesn't get slapped with all these different.
Right.
We have to be really clear because. All right, very good. I'm happy.
Very good. Okay, let's move on because we want to be respectful of Mr. Simonian. Okay, so
I had a motion by Board Member Yu and a second by Board Member Palmer to approve the project. This will be roll call. Board Member Aliano?
Yes.
Board Member Palmer?
Yes.
Board Member Simonian?
Yes.
Board Member Yu?
Yes.
Mr. Chair Insua?
yes,
Okay, we have a 5-0 vote to approve the project with the conditions.
Congratulations.
congratulations. Excellent job.
Thank you.
Okay, I think the next order of business is the minutes. Okay, approval of minutes.
And I must excuse myself.
You're done.
That's right, it's 6:30, and I had a prior
Very good.
engagement to go to.
Thank you.
See you, Art.
The first minute I have here, I was absent, so I'll give it to Mr. Yu, who was here.
August 5th.
Thank you. So we're keeping.
I didn't have
the
anything
package
on this
for
one.
next time. Okay.
I didn't have any comments on it.
I move to approve.
Do you have a motion?
You want a second?
Second, yes.
I'm sorry, who made the motion?
I second it.
And second, Mr. Eliano. This will be roll call. Mr. Eliano?
Yes.
Ms. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Simone is gone. Mr. Yu?
Yes.
And then we have the minutes from August 19th.
I move to approve those.
19.
Mr. Simonian was absent.
Which one's?
This one we voted return for redesign. And I was looking at them, at the conditions. And this was the house that was up on the hill that we worked with. It had a lot of vertical massing and horizontal blockings and stuff when we talked about it a lot. When I read the conditions that we put on it, I seem to recall us being a little bit more specific in what we were looking at. What I'm getting at is when I look at August 19th, that only project, which is the Hasbeth Lane house, and I read the conditions that we put here. This is August 19th, PDR 2010-025-A. And August 19th. The reason when I'm describing is when I read the conditions that we wrote here, which is the first time we're actually seeing it in written form, I seem to recall us being a little bit more specific in those areas that we wanted to focus upon, like considering blocks of the second story, shifting it. And my point is that I would rather just wait on this condition, on this minutes, have staff have an opportunity. I think Milka, correct. Milka was the case planner. I would like to have Milka look at the tape of it and see if there was stuff that we thought we wanted to say that are not in my memory reflected here, and wait 1 week or 2 weeks until we come back. Is that appropriate? Because when I read it, I thought we were more specific with it.
Yeah, just for your information, what we try and do, because there's a 15-day appeal period, we do our very best to get the conditions out in the mail to the applicant and on record, so that if there's a condition that the applicant is very concerned about, they have the opportunity to appeal the condition. So that's been issued already. If there are clarifications or modifications based on that we missed something or it was clear in the record of the tape, which is also part of the record, it's fine for us to revise them and work with the applicant on that. So that's absolutely fine as part of our process. It doesn't create any challenges for us, and we really do appreciate if we do miss something, needs clarification, we get something slightly wrong, if you bring it up to us. We do our very best to read back our conditions to you as part of the meeting, and sometimes we get it all and sometimes we don't. If we were here until it was perfect, we would be here for a very long time every time we meet. So we do appreciate that process.
Okay, so I'm of the mindset, let's just wait, have Milka look at the tapes, because I think there's a little bit more stuff, especially with this very important project.
And then which condition is that exactly?
I think for me, when you look at the conditions as they're noted here, I think that they're a little bit too general, and we tried to give more specific.
More specificity.
But I think
Okay, so all of the conditions could be clarified a little bit.
I think so.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, I don't have any other business. Why don't I move to adjourn?
Thank you. Well, you can't move, you're the chairman.
Oh, all right.
And we don't need a second.
I move to adjourn.
It is 6:42.
Let's do it.
We're adjourned.
We're adjourned. Thank you.